Hi guys, this is Brenda with Keenan Kreations, and today I'm going to show you how to create a vintage card using the Lotus Blossom stamp set. To get started, we're going to use Typeset Designer Series paper, and this is cut 4 inches by 5 1/4. It's also a little bit thinner than most of our Designer Series paper, but you get extra sheets. We're going to sponge the edges with baked brown sugar. We're going to use a stamping sponge, and I like to grip it here so it curves the bottom. And instead of going like this across the ink pad, sometimes that will bring this under and you'll get ink on the top part, which will get on your fingers. So just hold it this way and go up and down your ink pad. Normally I would hold it up, but this paper is pretty thin. So I'm going to set it down, and most of the ink is going to end up off the paper, and you're going to work your way in. And you're going to go in a circular motion. And you can see how most of the ink is out here and a little bit is on the paper. And you're just going to repeat that all the way around. And you can see the sponging around the edges gives it a nice aged look. And we're going to layer this to the front of our card. And we're using baked brown sugar, and this is a standard card size, 8.5 by 5.5, and scored down the middle at 4 1/4. You can also sponge the edges of the baked brown sugar cardstock. And look right here, see how I'm not quite lined up? I'm a little bit crooked. So sometimes that happens, so just straighten out your edges so they're all nice and lined up, and then just recrease the side over here. So you can pick this up because it's a little sturdier than that paper, and just hit the edges. Now before I layer this to the front of the card, I need to add my ribbon. This ribbon is new from the Kreations catalog, and it's called Sahara Sand Lace Trim. And you're just going to measure probably about 1 inch from each side. And we're going to use some linen thread and tie a bow. Now I like to tie it before I glue it to the paper because it's going to gather this ribbon here, and you don't want it to pull this paper and tear it. So just lay this down. Let's go to about the 3rd little scallop, and then you're just going to tie a bow. So you start out by tying like this, and then make a loop, wrap it around, and pull that through. So once the bow is tied, then I fuss with it. And you can get these a little bit smaller. Trim off the excess. Now I also take a bit of time just to kind of straighten out this lace so it's laying the way that I want it to. So I'm just going to pull this over to the top. So now we can add adhesive around all the edges. So it's probably about 1 inch, maybe 1 1/4 inches from the bottom. And then you can wrap this around, and it's going to stick in the adhesive that's on the back. And then make sure you're straight. I like to put extra adhesive just to make sure that that stays put. And we're going to layer this to the front, and we'll set this aside. We're going to stamp on very vanilla cardstock, and this is 2 5/8 by 3 7/8. We're going to use the Lotus Blossom stamp set, and you can see there are 3 images that will create the flower, and I like to stamp with the bolder image first, this one second, and this one last. We're going to use Sahara Sand, so tap on your ink pad. Now you'll see there's like a little pointy thing right there on the photopolymer. That's just to help you with the direction for the other flowers. So the first flower we're going to stamp fairly close to the top and slightly angled, and press that down. So you should have a nice solid image. Tap a second time, and we'll stamp the second flower. It's okay if they overlap a little bit too. We're going back to soft suede, and this is for the second image. So we're just going to tap, tap. Now that little pointy thing at the top is the directional arrow, so that kind of helps me to know where to start lining it up. But you want to kind of hover over the image until you can see where it's going to lay on top of that first image. And just press that down. Now you'll notice there's a little bit of ink on that little pointy arrow thing, but it doesn't get on my paper because this is not as raised as the rest of it. It's just meant to help you with direction. So we're just going to repeat that for the other flower. The next color is Early Espresso, and this is the third image. This little pointy thing is important because it's kind of hard to tell what part of the flower that is, but if you just know that that's the top, you're going to tap, tap, and again, take your time, just kind of hover over the image so you get the placement just right. And close is good here. If you're not perfect, it's still going to look nice. And then tap, tap for the second flower. Now there's also 2 stems. So I have one on one side of the block and one on the other side. We're going to stamp the more solid stem in soft suede. And just tap, tap. You don't want to rock the acrylic block. If you get ink, see right there how I've got ink on that corner? Go ahead and wipe that off so it doesn't transfer to your paper. So now you can see exactly where you're stamping and press that down. So we're going to stamp the second one over here. The second stem has a little bit of detail. We're going to ink up an Early Espresso. And you can see how you can just line that right up. And then repeat that for the second one. Now I like to line up this paper to the grid paper. See the lines right here? So when I stamp the greeting, it's going to be easier for me to stamp this straight. So it's going to be fairly close to the flower here, so we allow room for the ribbon across the bottom. We're going back to soft suede ink, and we're going to sponge the edges. So this one I like to pick up and just kind of hit the edges first. And then I'm going to set it down on the grid paper and do that same kind of sponging off and working my way in just to kind of hit those corners a little bit. And then you can go down a little. And then I'm really kind of focusing on the corners here. We're going to add adhesive to the back, and we're going to layer this right on the front, just tucking it under the ribbon. And take your time to make sure that you're pretty close to center. So I've also stamped and sponged the inside and the envelope to match. I hope you enjoyed today's project. For more ideas, you can visit me at KeenanCreations.com. Thanks and have a great day.